Good afternoon to you. Mark Sott with HurricaneTrack.com here. Hurricane Outlook and Discussion time. It is Wednesday, the 25th of August, 2021. There is a lot to talk about, so let's just get on with it, shall we? Going to divide this up into different segments today. First, starting with what do we know? Well, let's take a look at the National Hurricane Center homepage. Good starting point. Invest area 99L over here with a 80% chance of development over the next 5 days, and we have 97L, I believe this is, 80% chance over the next 5 days, 98L out here, 30% chance. Things are certainly busy in the Atlantic Basin. They are busy in the Eastern Pacific. This is 95E for Eastern Pacific, and it's 100%. It's going to happen. This is going to be our next storm. Nora will be the name, and you can see the area of development, the zone of development, if you will. And this could have some big implications on this side, what happens over here. And I'll explain that going forward. So this is what we know. This is the stage being set, so to speak. Part of that, let's take a look at the satellite imagery this afternoon, courtesy of Tropical Tidbits. Here's 99L down here. We'll put a big 99 right there. This is 98 in here, well on its way to developing. Here's 97 over here. And this will eventually be 90L, I think, going forward. Another huge piece of energy coming off. This is Eastern Pacific, invest area 95E. So the tropics are very, very busy. This is an upper level low that's got some energy working its way down closer to the surface. Very warm water across the western basin. So even these upper level areas of low pressure that are cold air rotating around in the mid to upper levels, sometimes they can develop a surface reflection, and you get the latent heat and the condensation and the release of heat, and they become more warm core, and that can have some implications too on what happens with our system 99L especially. So let me just kind of make this clear. We're going to focus on 99L. I am not at all concerned about what this does, and I'm not concerned about what this does, and I'm not concerned about this for the time being. Those can all wait. We'll put them on the back burner. We'll get to those later. They're not going to affect land appreciably anytime soon, so no need to focus on those really at all. Our main interest is going to be with 99L and the potential for hurricane impacts coming up for this area over the next several days into the early part of next week. All right, in the what we know, what's the current situation? Well, the reflectivity here at the 850 level, what we call the vorticity. Here is the energy. Let's highlight it in white. That'll be a little easier to see. This is the energy down here with 99L. There's some more energy up here with that upper level low, and just another piece of energy down near the surface. Again, this is the 5,000 foot level of the atmosphere, or what we call 850 millibars. That's another way to look at the heights in the atmosphere. And so this is the 850 level, and pilots know about this, meteorologists do, but it's about 5,000 feet up. And so these are basically as close to the surface as you can get. There is a 925 chart as well, I do believe it is. But we look to see if these bundle up, if they become rounded and focused, and if they do, that's a telltale sign that we are off to the races with something trying to develop. So what else? Well, the current situation, I'm telling you what, water temperatures compared to average all across the Atlantic Basin here, with only a few small areas of cold anomalies dotted in here. These are insignificant. Everything else in the Atlantic Basin is basically warmer than average. We have the cooler than average, what we call the Nino regions of most of the equatorial Pacific through here. Now the Eastern Pacific is a little bit warmer than the long-term average, but the overwhelming upward motion, warm water, whatever you want to call it, is favoring the Atlantic Basin right now. And so we're at the height of hurricane season, at least ramping up towards it. And climatologically speaking, that is something that is positive for development. We've got these warmer than average sea surface temperatures, so there's more heat, more latent heat, more energy available than usual. Of course, it's been this way for several years now, so it's starting to become usual. And we have a favorable Madden-Julian oscillation, kind of coinciding with what we call a convectively coupled Kelvin wave. For you at home, it means favorable. Conditions are favorable and getting more favorable. Doesn't mean they're favorable everywhere, and it doesn't mean that they are perfect. But we're getting into that time of year where the moisture is going to be more in the mid-levels or so. The humidity value is going up, less shear, less dry air, and just generally favorable conditions overall. Divergent flow in the atmosphere way up high, so that instead of storms getting cut off from westerly winds or northerly winds or whatever, what we call shearing winds, much more divergent in the atmosphere where these storms can blossom and fan out all that energy into the stratosphere, really, the lower part of it, and at the top of the troposphere, and develop. That's it. It's favorable. What else? Well, we have high ocean heat content, especially across this portion of the basin coming out of the Caribbean into the Gulf of Mexico. Pretty much anything in this area right here, and it's hard to get into the physics of it, but believe me, when you see these numbers here, you start to really get concerned that that's a lot of upper ocean heat content. Even this out here, these sort of lower values, is plenty warm to give you an intense hurricane. And the upper ocean heat content, just real quick in case you're brand new to this thing, what does that mean? Well, we measured the water temperature, and it's about 80 degrees Fahrenheit, roughly, that you need to sustain most tropical systems. There are always exceptions. When that water is just at the surface, let's say 10, 20, 30 feet deep, and a hurricane comes along, or you get strong winds or whatever, it gets mixed up pretty easily. Colder water comes up from below, and you mix out that warmer water, and these hurricanes can tend to weaken, and they certainly don't strengthen as much if there is lower ocean heat content value in the water. How do you get the higher values? That warm water extends deep, 50, 100, 300 meters deep, whatever. And the higher, the deeper into the water that 80 degree isotherm extends, in other words, the thicker the warm water column, the higher the upper ocean heat content values are. That's a good way to visualize it. So this color code tells us that all of these areas through here have very high upper ocean heat content, meaning simply there is a lot of energy available. So that's the upper ocean heat content. This is the actual sea surface temperature profile. These are the actual. Okay, so if you went out and measured it, 30 degrees Celsius all through here. This is 30 Celsius. That's very, very warm. Mid to upper 80s Fahrenheit. This is 31 Celsius all through here. Very, very warm. And let's go back and look. Okay, that's the actual. How does that compare to the anomalies? Well, unfortunately, hate to be the bearer of bad news, but we know what's potentially coming. Water temperatures all along the Gulf, including northern Mexico, that's part of the Gulf, throughout the coastal areas of Texas and Louisiana, are running above the long-term average by a half a degree to a degree Celsius. Now, that doesn't sound like a lot. If you were in a bath and you made it 1 degree Celsius warmer than it was earlier, you might not notice it. But when you have all that energy in the water, that extra half a degree or degree Celsius is a tremendous amount of added energy. So it is concerning, especially now that we have the potential for something to come along, up through here, maybe somewhere in this area, to take advantage of it. Big question mark. We don't know for sure. We'll get to all of that going forward. So all of these are the sort of parameters for where we are, the current situation. So what don't we know? All right, so we know what we know, right, about the circumstances for everything, all these different areas here. This is all the stuff we know. What don't we know? Well, that's in the forecast part. We don't know where this energy is going to consolidate. This is the GFS 850 millibar layer of the atmosphere. This is the energy I was showing you on that other panel from the current situation segment, if you will, and that's represented right here. That energy is this energy here, and this is the other energy to the north. Where does it bundle? We don't know that. So we can look to the modeling to give us some guidance. So just watch all of this energy in here, try to consolidate, and let's just see what happens on the 12Z run. This is the operational one run of the GFS, the operational GFS. There's a whole bunch of ensemble members as well to give you sort of the what-if scenario. But this is the main one, the operational model. So we move it out to 24 hours, and you can clearly see a fairly sharp turning in the cloud field. Well, there would be clouds there, but in the overall vorticity and the wind field down there, another one up here. So there's some energy down there, no doubt about it, over very warm water with increasingly favorable upper levels. We'll move ahead another 48 hours. And this is very important. Where do these pieces of energy get together and ultimately close off? There's sort of three lobes in there on the GFS, and it's really a matter of which one does the closing off, so to speak. The GFS on the 12Z seems to put its money on that northern part in the Yucatan Channel. You can see it very clearly. So it avoids land for the most part and starts to take shape in the southern Gulf, and then really comes together there so that by day 5, we have an intense hurricane, more than likely. That's what this modeling shows me. I've done this long enough. You just know what to look for. That is the reflection at the lower levels of the atmosphere of a well-developed hurricane at day 5. And that's all we need to look at. I mean, that's as long as the Hurricane Center forecasts are. What are some of the other unknowns? Well, this is part of the ridge. This is down at the lower levels. You know, you can play what if all day. What if this is a little larger, or a little bit more to the west? This gets shoved more to the west. If this is smaller, like a big balloon that deflates a little bit, then this is more to the east. We don't know. This is 5 days away. And, very importantly, we don't have a vortex down there yet. We don't have a named system. There's no closed low. It hasn't become an entity yet. This is just the model saying, I think it's going to be this area right here, and then it develops it into that. Where this comes together is very important in terms of where it ends up and how strong it'll be when it gets there. That's very basic, and it makes a lot of sense. Now let's compare this to the European model, the ECMWF. Same part of the atmosphere, 850 millibars, about 5,000 feet. Same initialization, 12Z, which is 8 a.m. Eastern Time today. There's the energy in the Caribbean. There's some energy in the Southwest Atlantic. And just other pieces of energy that you'll see out. Don't let these distract you. Out in the open Atlantic. All right? So let's put this into motion. This is every 24 hours from Tropical Tidbits. So tomorrow morning, Thursday morning, Friday morning. Now, in this case, the Euro believes that the vorticity will consolidate near the Caymans. And if that's the case, it gets a little bit of a head start and goes on through the Yucatan Channel by 3 days off the west coast of the tip of Cuba there even. And then there's the high pressure area. You can see the outline of it through here, and it's going to ride around the backside of that. That's the key here. It can't go through high pressure. It just doesn't work that way. It's finding the path of least resistance between these big ridges of high pressure. So that's 3 days. Here's day 4. Signature of a strong hurricane. Day 5, very strong hurricane in the modeling here, right off the coast of Louisiana. And that's important because what is off the coast of Louisiana? 31 degrees Celsius water. Untapped, fairly shallow, relatively speaking. In other words, the upper ocean heat content, it's formidable, but not as high as it is right here. We better hope it doesn't spend some time over this. That is very high, off the chart almost, upper ocean heat content values. So where it forms and where it tracks is huge, and we don't know that yet, and that's very important. This also helps us with that uncertainty. The GFS ensemble, the ensemble forecast system, that's what that EFS means. This is the average or the mean right here. I'm going to draw, well, it's in black, you can see it. And then all the other members are around it. So these are the other possibilities from the GFS ensemble. All right, the black line is the average, the mean. Where does the mean come in? Down here, not far from Freeport and vicinity. Victoria, Texas, south of Houston, that area. That's the ensemble mean. The GFS operational is east of the ensemble mean. That is telling. That means that there's enough members pulling the average back to the south and west that you cannot say, living in Louisiana, oh my gosh, I really have to worry about this, the sky is falling. We don't know that yet. And the Euro will have its ensemble mean come out. It may be available now, but I haven't had it loaded up yet. We look over at Storm 2K. Awesome message board. I've been a member of this since 2003. And you see the uncertainty here. All these different members talking about it. That there's the H-Wharf, and they talk about some of the things that could be happening with it, and then you look at this. Yeah, well, it's never been wrong except for the last 40 or so runs. Even our trusted computer models designed for hurricanes. The HWRF is not going to do a good job yet because we don't have a defined system. So all you got to do is just look through a message board like Storm 2K and their models thread on 99L, and you get an idea. Some of the models are good, some of them are bad on it, some of them are consistent, some of them are left, some of them are right. That's west versus east, whatever. So you get an idea, you start sniffing this stuff out, you can find clues. That the bottom line, though, they are all showing some kind of a bad outcome for the Gulf of Mexico coast. That's kind of the bottom line. We don't know exactly where just yet. So what do we look for? All right, here's where I'm just going to talk to you because I can't show you necessarily what to look for in the modeling. We just talked about that. We know it's early. It hadn't even developed yet. We don't have Ida. That would be the next named storm, assuming that this becomes Ida before one of the other two systems out there does so. So what do you look for? Well, instead of thinking about, I want to know where it's going to go and how strong it's going to be when it gets there, everybody is fixated on that, and I get it. That's something that's important, but I would put it down in the lower part of the scale of importance. What you need to be looking for and thinking about more is what impacts could affect me, my family, my business, my community. That's what I want you to look for. The broader picture beyond where the lines are showing and the little dots on there, 24, 48, 72, 96, 120, and those pressure readings and the scary wind fields that are going to show up. All of that helps to feed confirmation bias that makes you uneasy. And you start looking at that and thinking fear and, sadness and anxiety when you need to be thinking about what do I need to do to get ready and what am I getting ready for? Yes, look at where, again, down at the bottom part of the importance column, it's going to end up, how strong it's going to be. Nobody's going to stop you from looking at the models and reading message boards and social media. I'm not even going to try, but I'm asking you to put the priority of impacts. What are the impacts? I need to think about that. I live at Sycamore Point. I live in Cameron. I live in Houston. I live in Galveston. Whatever, right? What could possibly happen? Surge, high wind, power outages, and all the bad things. What are the odds of those things happening? Start reading National Weather Service discussions. You've got a gift here with the internet. There's a dark and nasty side to it, no doubt. But there's also this very bright, positive, and enlightened side of it that gives you the tools to arm yourself so that you're not up all night filled with anxiety. People in Louisiana have been through a lot last year, a hell of a lot more than anybody deserves to be, with everything that went on with the pandemic and then the barrage of hurricanes. Having one of these things parked in your backyard is unnerving. So just think about more, all right, what do I need to look for? Because even if it makes landfall in Texas, you could still have impacts in Louisiana. And how do you prepare for those mentally and physically? And that's what we will address over the coming days. All right, sort of keep calm, keep focused. We'll get through it. Yes, sometimes it is the worst case scenario, and we deal with that when it comes. The number one thing will be to save your butt. If you don't have your butt in a seat somewhere watching what I'm doing, I might as well quit. So I got to keep you alive. That's my number one goal. And part of that is keeping your anxiety levels low if I can. All right, so connecting and following, especially if you're new, lots of new people are going to come looking for information. It's not like a billion people are following me on YouTube. That would be great, but we're not there yet. So this is how you do it. I'm on Twitter. There's the little birdie. I'm on Facebook. That logo. And then you're watching on YouTube. If you would like to subscribe to the channel and share the videos and like them and make the algorithms do all their cool things to expose more people to what we're doing, I would appreciate it, and I bet your friends and family would appreciate, a little bit of calm in all of this. And then, very important, we are crowdfunded through Patreon. This is my job. This is what I do. I've done it for 25 years. We're in the era of crowdfunding. Patreon, what is that? It's a website and an app where you can crowdfund and literally help to steer what I do, what my team and I are capable of. We have done a lot at the very least, check it out. Patreon.com/HurricaneTrack. We have almost 650, maybe it's higher than that now. I'm closing in on 700 current patrons, plus about 3 or 4 dozen legacy HurricaneTrack Premium. We started this back in 2005. Now in the age of crowdfunding, it's different, it's better, it's comprehensive, it's like a cooperative, and it really helps me to do what I do, all right? And I think that's it. Looking at my notes, I've covered just about everything. So in the mornings, I do a podcast called Hurricane Season, the podcast. It's very short, a couple minutes long, giving you sort of the nuggets of the day. I wasn't going to call it Hurricane Nuggets of the Day. That just sounds stupid. So it's just called Hurricane Season, the podcast. Available pretty much everywhere you get a podcast. And it'll give you an idea of what I'm looking at for the day ahead. And then in this video, we go into much more detail. All right? All right. That is it from me for today. As always, thanks for tuning in. It is absolutely wonderful to have you on the other side listening to me. I appreciate it more than you will ever know. I am Mark Sudduth for HurricaneTrack.com. We'll continue this tomorrow.